Welcome back to Sarah and Tech. I'm Sarah, and today my guest is Andrew. Andrew, what's your official title?
I am a senior software engineer.
And where do you work?
I work at Solid State Operations right now.
What do you do for Solid State, other than software engineering? You're like, that's everything.
So,
What type?
As far as what is Solid State?
What do they do? I understand you do software engineering, but what type of software and what's the purpose of the software that you're building?
So we are building a platform for unemployment insurance systems for both state and federal governments.
And so when you say insurance, is that like health, dental?
Unemployment.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So at least right now we, if that goes well, we could expand.
So I'm assuming it's definitely been utilized during this pandemic period.
Yeah, that was one of our kind of our big selling points. And that was one of the news stories, in circulation during, during the pandemic was all these kind of archaic unemployment systems that had been built some time ago were basically failing under the amount of pressure that they were suddenly under. And it was basically a good selling point for us to move forward. And so we've got a few states right now that we're working with and building things for them right now.
That's really cool. So you've actually been helping a lot of people with the software you've been building.
Yes.
Does it make you feel really accomplished?
It does. So yeah, I really like going into work every day, and kind of that extra bonus of helping people is nice.
So how did you get into software engineering? You were born, then software engineering. When did you discover you liked computers?
So it was probably in my junior-ish year of college. I had a physics class actually, and the professor showed us how to solve a really tough problem using a script in R.
R?
Yes.
Oh, tell me about it.
Basically, there was some matrix math and some statistics that needed to be done to solve the problem, and R had a lot of that stuff built in. So, with that, he showed us how to solve this really complex problem. And then, if anything changed on it, you could just go change one part of the script or, parameterize it as you needed. And I was like, well, that's how I'm solving all my problems from now on. And it just kind of really took off from there. And then when I was in graduate school, I actually built on that, some of that professor's work a little bit, using R for scripting to get graphs and various answers to my research. So
you did a lot of ggplot?
Yes, a lot of it. So
have you worked with Matplotlib?
A little bit, but not as much as I did with ggplot back in the day.
So you would say you like ggplot better?
I'm more versed in it, but I'm willing to give.
Just trying to get someone to admit they like R better than Python. That's all.
Fair.
That's my only angle.
I'm more experienced in R, so.
Oh wow, me too. So I feel you.
So, but I've used Python, and right now I work mostly in C#. I just kind of view languages as tools and use the right tool for the right problem, sort of thing.
Have you used Scala at all?
I've not.
Oh, so. I haven't either. I just hear it's horrible to learn. But once you learn it, it is just way super fast. It's just night and day. But that's PySpark or RSparkly.
Right.
Is basically the interface to make
that,
happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you have discovered your love of R and analytics, and then how did you transition from being in analytics to being in software engineering? Because usually those are kind of seen as different? Do you still deploy models and build models?
So not anymore. So when I was in graduate school for physics, I was doing a lot of the modeling, and I kind of became the guy in the department for anytime anybody needed code or to write anything in R. And somebody it was kind of a half joke, said I should look into being a software engineer. I kind of started looking into it a little bit as a career option, and basically I started learning other languages. I learned C and Python, C#, just kind of went through the gambit online of just learning all these different languages because I was really excited to just learn them. I just thought it was just a really interesting thing to learn, and I seemed to pick up on it pretty easily too, which was an advantage.
Just natural disposition towards it.
Yeah, and then we were or I was looking, where I wanted to go after college and kind of what I wanted to do, and I just kept putting in for basically software engineering job after software engineering job. I put in for some analytics jobs.
I know we both actually worked at the Idaho National Lab.
Yes.
And I thought that was odd. Does everyone in Idaho secretly work at the Idaho National Lab at one point in their life? That's what I'm coming to the conclusion.
I feel like I've heard that a few times, because there's somebody I work with now who worked at the INL I saw, and I was like, really? So yeah, I think a lot of people have worked out there. I think it's just, it's not a bad place to work. So
it's just in the middle of nowhere.
Just in the middle of nowhere, yeah, which was a problem, and so.
But that's a great place to keep nuclear type experiments.
Right, is in the middle of nowhere, yeah. Yeah, that was the other thing. I graduated, it was kind of like you could work at the INL or some other national lab, and it's like, I don't know if I want to live out in the middle of nowhere. So,
there are some nice national labs over back east and over, I think, right outside of LA and stuff.
Yeah, I also didn't want to leave Idaho, so
that does kind of limit the East Coast versus West Coast argument. Yeah. You don't get any coast really in Idaho.
Right, yeah. There's not really a coast argument there. And I kind of knew I wanted to move back to Boise because I'm from here and my wife is from here. And so we started looking for, if we could live in Boise and, how much I would have to basically kind of make that transition. And I eventually got, a job offer from a consulting firm. I worked there for about 2 years, and I
also transitioned from the National Lab to a
consulting firm. Yeah, it's kind of, I've started to notice there's kind of a path that seems to be what most people follow. And it showed me, I learned a lot there, and, I just kind of went deeper into the software engineering side of things. And then I was looking for, just something a little different and a little bit of a career change again. And that's when I found, solid state operations and put in there, and I've been there about 4-ish months now. Mm-hmm. So.
Remember when you got it, you came to the meetup, and I think you announced it there or something like that.
Yeah, I think I'd been there a week.
You had to present within your first week or something for the meetup, which I'm so sorry, because that must have been stressful.
It was, but it was fine.
You should have begged off. You should have been like, Sarah, just pick up the slack.
Well, no, I feel bad doing that because you always have to pick up the slack. So.
It's been weird. It's almost been a whole year where I haven't had to present. I've actually had other people present.
Oh, really?
I know. I'm really impressed with everyone.
Nice.
Following through and making commitments.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah. So is there any part of doing software engineering at Solid State or just in general that brings you a lot of joy?
So I get a lot of joy out of just building things in general, and I also get a lot of joy out of, I've built this program to solve problem X, and it actually solves problem X.
That's always great when a code does what you programmed it to do.
It always does what you tell it to do. It's just,
the problem is you might not have programmed it right. It does exactly what you tell it to do all the time.
Right. And so that can definitely be a little frustrating kind of getting there, but I do get a lot of satisfaction out of, wow, look at this problem that wasn't solved before and now it is.
How do you get into your flow state? Flow state being like, I am so tunnel vision on this programming, like my music's jamming, the lights are right. No one's going to talk to me for 2 hours. How do you get there?
Ooh.
I asked a toughie, huh?
Yeah.
Do you get to flow state much anymore?
I do. It's just, it's really hard to get into some days, and other days it's like, okay, I need to get there. Usually music can kind of help me get into the flow state, but I think really if I've got and this is kind of ideally, I think, like a really like either well-defined layout that like I know I'm going to follow and just kind of burn through.
So you start with like a nice outline and then start punching away in there?
Yeah, if I've got a nice list of things that I can just kind of punch through, or if I can, write out, I like a flow diagram or something, and it's like, okay, I need to go from point A to point B, and this is how to do it. And if I can start going and not hit any blocks or walls or, oh, I need to call somebody sort of thing.
Or I have a meeting.
Yeah, or a meeting comes up.
Or someone starts slacking me. Hey, do this thing.
Yeah, if somebody else needs help. And then, so that can definitely, definitely get interrupted, especially now that like, people are starting to be kind of back in the office. It's a lot easier now to like go tag somebody. But I've noticed a lot of people are pretty good. If you've got headphones in and you're sitting there jamming, they'll leave you alone.
I notice because I work from home like 2 days a week.
Right.
When I work from home, I totally get into my flow. And when I work in the office, it's like, it's a futile attempt now.
Right.
It's like, I apparently am here just for meetings and socialization and Nerf gun fights. I just didn't know it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Like at home, it can definitely be a lot easier to get into the flow state because the only thing I have to worry about is like my dog's interrupting me.
It's like, oh crap, you have to go outside again.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's really all I do to kind of try to achieve that.
Are there any things in software engineering that you see in the future that really excite you?
So we were just talking about something interesting at work today. GitHub's Pilot AI, where you basically just, in a structured format, but you tell it what you want the code, like what you want it to do. And it'll make the code for you. And what they've done is I was reading about it after we got done talking about it at work today. Basically, they've taken the entire open source that they have and ran an AI over it. And
they have some of the most complete open source code in the entire world through many different languages.
Mm-hmm. And so I think you can only get like a technical preview of it right now, but looking on their site and looking at what it can do, it looked really impressive to at least kind of eliminate some of the boilerplate code, at least that, sometimes you still have to spend some time writing.
I once read an article that said DevOps is going to be like no longer a thing in like a decade or two. Do you think that is going to come to fruition with this auto code generation?
So I haven't done a whole lot of actual DevOps work.
Or software engineering, I suppose.
Well, for software engineering, I think it'll just change how it looks. I think it'll look very different. But I think as of right now, with like GitHub's Copilot program that they have, it works. But as far as like whether or not like the code that you get is optimized or is it really the best way to write that sort of thing? I think that's going to be a shortcoming for a while for it. And then after that, and people who are more experienced than me have said this is, it'll probably become more like business analyst type of job, where a business person is going to tell you what they need, and you're going to translate that into the structured language for the for something like the Copilot to write.
I mean, I firmly believe, at least for data science, they're coming out with all these REST APIs.
Right.
And so you just throw data at it, and it does something in the back end, and then it gives the thing out that you want.
Right.
And the only problem is you have to pay for them a lot of money. But, I mean, then data scientists will only be solving very terribly interesting problems, which might be a good or a bad thing. And or you're going to become an API curator, in which you're like, this GCP and this AWS and this Azure APIs kind of all do the same thing, but this one's tweaked in such a way that it does it better. Do you think GitHub has any competitors in this space, really? Because, I mean, I don't know anything that has that much code in a repo.
Right. I don't know. The Copilot program just came to mind because, like, we had talked about it today at work.
Well, I find that space terribly interesting, and I know there's, like, a lot of work going on in it.
Right. But, yeah, I don't know if GitHub has anything. Not that I've heard of, at least. So.
I mean, like, have you ever heard of another code repo other than GitHub?
Right.
I haven't.
Fair enough.
Like, I'm like, I haven't heard anything. That's why I'm like, but yeah, that space is interesting. Is there anything that keeps you up at night? You're like, everything, Sarah. Why are you asking this?
Yeah, you are asking the hard questions. I didn't. But I'm really bad about not leaving work at work. And if a task has just stumped me, it can definitely keep me up at night, and I will lose sleep over it.
But that's how you know you're a good software engineer. You keep running mental cycles over the problem.
Well, that's fair.
I'm sure your employer loves it.
Right. But yeah, I think that's usually the only time that like I'm kind of up thinking about software programs, or if we're kind of discussing architecture or design. One of my coworkers said we were writing unit tests at one time, and one of my coworkers said something that just made me stop and think, because I hadn't thought about it in that way before. And it was just kind of a different way of thinking about it. Or maybe it really wasn't even a different way of thinking about it. It was just kind of a different way of phrasing the problem. And so that kind of kept me up one night. And then the next morning I came to him and I said, okay, here's what I'm thinking, and here's what you said yesterday. And we were able to make the two things line up. So stuff like that can definitely keep me up.
I mean, I know a lot of times I like think about stuff in the background while I'm doing other things. Right. When I wake up in the morning, I have my eureka moment, and then I want to I got to go code. I had my eureka moment. I know what I need to do now.
I have to execute on this now.
Or write it down somewhere.
Yeah.
Is there any advice that you want to give to your grandkids? It doesn't have to be software engineering, but if you had a hypothetical grandchild, you're like, Sarah, these questions are off the wall. Where are you coming up with them?
No, I'm trying to think that far in the future and where technology is going to be.
You're like, I'm just trying to think of my child. So
right.
do you and your wife have a child? Oh, sorry. Do you want children? How about that question?
Oh, boy.
I know it's a very common thing. There's even a subreddit called No Kids.
I mean, we've thought about it, and kind of still, I think we're still kind of both getting because we're both still really early on in our careers. So I think we're trying to get a little bit more established first.
That's usually a good thing to do.
So
a lot of people that have careers usually aim for their mid to late 30s. So it's totally okay. Not that my opinion on anything that happens in your private life matters. Anyway, do you have any advice that you think would be like surpass the passing of time? Like,
oh boy.
My favorite one is always like, always remember that everyone has their like personal battles that they're struggling with, and to give everyone kindness. Kind of always tend towards empathy.
Yeah, you stole my answer now.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. I heard some great advice one time was that one of the best soft skills that software engineers, software developers, data scientists, anybody writing code or anybody like in a technical field can have is empathy and being understanding. And this goes from every, it's pretty obvious to look at that and say, well, that makes sense to, put yourself in the shoes of a user when you're designing something and design it for them and be able to do that, but also putting yourself in the shoes of, maybe a junior developer or developer that has a different type of experience than you do, and just being empathetic to maybe how they learned, to code or to develop software.
That's some good advice.
So I think, yeah.
I mean, usually a good team is a diverse team that has a lot of different strengths that come together to build the product.
Right.
Because if everyone comes from the same angle, sometimes that doesn't always make a durable product.
Right. A lot of groupthink.
So what outside of software engineering and everything like that brings you a great amount of joy?
Spending time with my wife and our 2 dogs, that brings me a lot of joy, and there's more to life than just work and writing code all the time.
That's good. So. I'm glad that it's not just writing code all the time. I'd be worried about you if it was.
Right. I do the typical nerd things like play video games, and we're having a heat wave in the Northwest right now, but
I'm just hiding inside with the AC.
Right. Yeah. But my wife and I like to be outdoors. We roller skate and we go
You
hiking.
roller skate? Do you quad or inline?
She quads. I inline.
Does she play derby?
She is afraid to play derby.
Oh. Well, if she ever wants to quad with a fellow girl, that I love going on the green belt and going for miles and miles. So if she ever wants to go on the green belt and roller skate, like, let me know.
Okay.
I'll go with her.
Yeah, we started last year, and then we were looking at kind of starting again, and then we had this heat wave. So
my fiance is trying to pick up roller skating right now.
Oh, gotcha.
Too. So, but then the heat wave happened, and we're like, oh my gosh, we don't want to bike. We don't want to.
Just staying inside, yeah.
What's your current favorite video game?
I've just been enjoying just kind of going through the most recent Assassin's Creed.
What number are they on now?
5.
Oh, okay.
Technically.
It's
not really 5, but
Yeah, I played it back in college. I think there was at 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's really different now, but yeah, I'm just kind of going through that. I kind of like the single player games and story driven.
I also like single player, but mostly stick to strategy.
Oh, gotcha.
So I have 500 hours in Civ or something. It's kind of embarrassing. So I don't want anyone to know. That's why I totally just said it.
That's why you totally said it while we're being recorded.
Yep. I also like to play Polytopia, which is basically Civ for my cell phone.
Oh, gosh.
So, I know my strengths and I know what I like. Do you have a favorite technology stack?
So I've worked the most with .NET Core and .NET Framework, which is the standard C#, and it's nice because there's just a lot of things already there for it, and it just seemed like, maybe it's just because I worked in it for so long now. It seems very easy to use, and then I don't really do front end development anymore, but when I did, I used Angular, and once I got over the learning curve on Angular, it was very nice.
Do you have a favorite programming language?
Oh, I don't like that question.
Oh gosh. Do you have a programming language that you feel most comfortable in?
I am very comfortable in C#, and if you gave me a day back in R, I would probably be really comfortable in it. And then, Python, I'm fairly comfortable in. Yeah, most of like the modern ones that are commonly used.
So Pascal and Fortran, those are your homeboys, right?
No. Ooh. No.
Those are a little bit passe, huh?
Right.
So do you have any closing thoughts?
As far as
I mean, like, stay strong and always program, hide in the AC, roller skate.
I would say, anybody who's, looking at, doing software development or software engineering, there are just, the wealth of the internet. We have so many like great resources to learn about, not only how to do it, but like what it's like to be in the field. I actually, I started watching a YouTube channel like this one day, and that channel is just, the guy who runs that channel is just kind of blown up over the last couple of years now. Then, just, go watch a YouTube video and just see what you can pick up from it.
There's actually, I think, quite a few YouTubers that advocate for not getting a formal education because you can get the same for free on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is employers don't know how to measure that as well. And so getting the first job tends to be difficult.
Tends to be a little bit more difficult. Yeah, I can see that. And it's so hard for me to comment on that argument too. And do we have time to get into
totally,
it? Okay.
We can keep going.
It's a really interesting conversation to me because I don't have a computer science degree. Right?
I don't have a computer science degree. One of the best programmers I know doesn't even have a bachelor's degree, and
right.
I'm just going to drop that they make 175 plus bonus, and they don't even have a bachelor's. Okay, so in case anyone's wondering,
right?
I have a master's, so I'm not talking about me.
Right. And so I had learned programming, through my physics degrees and everything, and then I would after college I was kind of self-taught, just kind of learning on my own. So I'm kind of in this weird world of I was somewhat self-taught and somewhat academically trained. And, but yeah, it's very interesting that you don't need any sort of degree in this field anymore.
I think a lot of people, at least in data science, they want that PhD. They want that MS.
Yes.
And I'm half the time I'm I know really good people that don't even have a bachelor's.
Right. Yeah. And I think data science is a little bit of a harder sell, right? Because you need to be understanding the statistics of the matter.
Mm-hmm. But anyone can watch
anyone can do that, so I don't know.
I mean, go memorize some equations, build your own EM algorithm on a for loop in R, slap a sticker on you and call you a data scientist, right?
Yeah. And there's so many boot camp programs out there as well now, that are online or in person, depending on.
And there's a lot that will even let you take the boot camp for free. And then you have to sign a contract that you'll pay 5% of your income for the next amount of X years.
Right, yeah.
And and they're sustainable is the crazy part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, it's a very interesting kind of conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I know some places that require a PhD
right.
to just even be a data scientist, and that's different.
That's but yeah, I mean, yeah, PhD seems like a bit of a high requirement, so
yeah, there's not even really PhDs in data science either.
Right.
It's just the generality of having one.
Yeah, and I think you'll start to see that change because I've started to see masters in data science programs pop up over the last couple of years, and I think you'll start to see PhD programs in it kind of pop up as well.
Were you familiar with like the rise of the OS developer?
No.
Okay, so like go back to like, I'm not perfect on the recounting of this because I'm not an OS developer.
Right.
But back in like the early 2000s, OS developers, there was a lacking of them. And so a bunch of people rushed to become OS developers, and then there were too many. And then you could never get a job as an OS developer.
Right, and because the market had been saturated. Yeah.
And a lot of people are drawing parallels between that and this field called data science. Because there's a bunch of people rushing to get boot camps and bachelor's and master's degrees to go into that field.
Right.
Or switching into it, and then
the market is saturated and you can't get in. And I think so. When do you remember the timeline for that? Do you remember like when that happened?
I want to say it was like early 2000s through like mid to late 2000s, like 2005, 2007, somewhere in there. I was still in like undergrad, so maybe that doesn't make sense. Anyway.
But all that to say, my point with that would be that, you know, we're living in this world where we're using more and more technology, and we're getting more, you know, companies are collecting more and more and more data. And so I think they're going to be like if it keeps going the way it does, there could be an infinite number of problems to solve, right?
But I mean, there's only so many different ways that you can do facial recognition.
That's true.
It's like, I mean, they do have problems with certain ethnicities having facial recognition, working on them. But beside that point, once they have solved those all of the way and to perfection and actually have a balanced training data set, is there truly another way to recognize the human face in real time?
I don't know.
I mean, and they probably have REST APIs that do that. And I know there's very simple out of the box, like bounding box algorithms that will do it in real time for free on your video data that'll bound box around you while you're moving and can identify very simple objects like that's a table, that's a chair, that's a human.
Yeah, and I think like you'll get it. I mean, then you just, I mean, because you'll want it to start identifying more and more complex objects, right? You know, but especially with the rise of like self-driving cars and.
Oh, don't get me started. I have to ride in a Tesla that has an autopilot way too often, so I have a lot of opinions.
Oh boy.
That's like a landmine. We probably shouldn't talk about
We shouldn't go there.
So let me just say. But yes.
But yeah, I mean, because I mean, there could be another, you know, because we had, you know, companies were collecting so much data that we came up with a new term, big data, for it. I mean, is there going to be another?
But the term big data existed in statistics.
That's true.
And I mean, there was even a course for me for big data and statistics when I was in grad school.
Right.
Before neural nets were even a thing. I know, I'm that old. When bag of words was a new NLP technique.
Oh
I know, I am just, well, I mean, it was innovative, not a new technique, but it was innovative that you were putting it on things.
Gotcha.
Now everyone's like, that's like the first technique you learn in an NLP class. But
Gotcha.
So closing thoughts.
Right.
Other than I have a crazy opinion about self-driving Teslas, which I will not share.
Yeah, I think just to close with, I don't know if you have an interest in any sort of technology or technical career, just start searching the internet and seeing what resources are out there and start looking into it.
Because there are a lot of ways to teach yourself how to code for free.
Yep.
Outside the classroom.
Yep. There's a lot of free ways out there as well. And
a lot of jobs now have take-home technical assessments. And so I'm assuming a lot of those that have that, like, take home and do this technical where you actually program in Python and all of that.
Right.
That they probably don't care if you have a degree or not, as long as you can program in
Python. As long as you can, pass the assignment.
So, very good advice. I feel like we need, like, Pink Floyd song, like Another Brick in the Wall or something. Insert it just right here.
It might do that for you.
Anyway, thank you so much for coming on Sarah in Tech.
Yeah, no problem.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching Sarah in Tech. This is Sarah and Andrew saying see ya. Thanks for listening to Sarah in Tech. Feel free to email me at sarah@sarahintech.net or follow me on Instagram at sarahintech. Hope you enjoyed listening.